They tell you to never go hiking alone. They tell you to tell someone your itinerary. They tell you to stay on the trail. They tell you all these things and you nod because it's common sense. But they don't tell you about the silence. They don't tell you how loud it gets. And they definitely don't tell you what to do when the forest decides it wants to keep you. My name is Maya. This is the story of how I lost my brother, Leo, in the Plumas National Forest, and how I came to understand that lost isn't always the right word. It was supposed to be a simple trip, a 3-day weekend to clear our heads. Leo had just quit his soul-crushing job in tech, and I was between semesters at Sac State. We'd done this a dozen times as kids with our dad: pack up the van, find a dirt road, and disappear for a few days. Dad passed a few years back, but the van, Bertha, was our inheritance. A rusted-out 1987 Volkswagen Vanagon with a cracked dashboard and an engine that sounded like a dying lawnmower. We loved her. The first day was perfect. We found a spot about 2 miles down a fire road, off the main highway. No one around for miles. Just pines, granite boulders, and a sky so big and blue it felt like you could fall into it. The second day, Leo wanted to hike to a lake he'd seen on a topo map. I wanted to stay and read. We argued the way siblings do. "Maya, you can't just sit here and rot," he'd said, grinning. "The lake. Meet me at the lake. It's just a mile that way." He pointed past a large, twisted Jeffrey pine. "If I'm not back by 4, you can send a search party." He laughed, shouldered his day pack, and walked into the trees. I watched him go. He turned back once, waved, and then the forest just swallowed him. The green seemed to close up behind him like water. I fell asleep in the van reading. When I woke up, the light had changed. It was that heavy, golden hour light. I checked my phone. 5:47 p.m. My first feeling was annoyance. Classic Leo, lost track of time. I grabbed a water bottle and walked to the twisted pine. "La!" I yelled. My voice just died. It didn't echo. It was like the words were absorbed by the trees.
No birdsonanser.
No rustling of leaves. Just a thick, heavy quiet. I waited an hour. Then 2. The sun started to set, painting the sky in bruised purples and oranges. That's when the annoyance curdled into a cold, hard knot of fear in my stomach. I called the sheriff. They came with flashlights and dogs. The search and rescue team was efficient, grim-faced. They asked me 100 questions. What was he wearing? Did he have water? Was he prone to panic? They asked about his mental state. I told them he was happy, relieved. He was the happiest I'd seen him in years. The dogs tracked his scent from the twisted pine for about half a mile. Then, at a small, dry creek bed, they stopped. The handler, a woman named Jan with tired eyes, said the dogs just lost interest. They circled, confused, and then sat down. It was like his scent had been erased. Like he'd never been there at all. They searched for 10 days. Helicopters with thermal imaging.
Drones.
Lines of volunteers walking shoulder to shoulder through the brush. They covered 30 square miles. They found nothing. Not his hat. Not a footprint. Not a single trace. On the 11th day, they called off the active search. Suspended, they called it. They said sometimes people just disappear in the woods. They said the forest is bigger and wilder than we think. They said all the right things. But I saw the look in their eyes. Confusion. The kind they try to hide. I didn't leave. I couldn't. I moved into the van. I told myself I was still searching. I'd hike for hours every day, calling his name, my voice growing hoarser and hoarser until it was just a dry rasp. A week after the search ended, I was following the old trail to the dry creek bed, the place where the dogs stopped. I wasn't expecting to find anything. I was just drawn there. The silence was so complete I could hear my own blood rushing in my ears. I sat down on a fallen log, exhausted, and that's when I saw it. A glint of color, half buried in the pine needles near the creek. My heart stopped. I scrambled over and dug it out. It was Leo's water bottle, the bright blue one he always carried. It was scratched but intact, and it was ice cold. In the middle of a California summer, with the temperature pushing 90 degrees, this water bottle felt like it had just come out of a freezer. I fumbled with it, unscrewed the cap, and dumped the contents into my palm. It wasn't water. It was a small, smooth stone, a piece of granite, perfectly oval, polished by some ancient river. And carved into its surface, faint but unmistakable, was an arrow, pointing deeper into the woods, past the creek bed, into a part of the forest I'd never explored. A place where the trees grew thicker, older, and the sunlight barely touched the ground. Every logical cell in my brain screamed at me to go back to the van, to call the sheriff, to show them the bottle. But the cold of that stone was seeping into my hand, into my bones. It didn't feel like a warning. It felt like an invitation. From Leo. I walked. The air changed immediately. It was colder, heavier. The silence was no longer just an absence of sound. It was a presence. A pressure against my eardrums. I walked for what felt like hours. The trees all started to look the same, but also wrong. The patterns in the bark seemed to shift when I wasn't looking directly at them. The shadows between the trunks were too dark, too deep, like doorways to somewhere else. I started to see things. Movement at the corner of my eye. A shape that might have been a person standing perfectly still behind a tree, waiting. I'd whip my head around, and there would be nothing. Just the endless, patient forest. I wanted to turn back. I was terrified, but my legs kept moving. It was like the forest itself was guiding me, hurting me. I came to a small, circular clearing I'd never seen on any map. The ground was soft, spongy moss, and in the very center, there was a single, massive boulder. And sitting on that boulder, perfectly arranged, was a small pile of smooth, river-polished stones. They were all carved with arrows. Dozens of them. Each arrow pointed in a different direction, deeper into the labyrinth of trees. And there, at the base of the boulder, was Leo's day pack. It was worn, faded, but unmistakably his. I fell to my knees and unzipped it. Inside was his phone.
Dead.
A half-eaten granola bar. And his journal. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely open it. The last entry was dated the day he disappeared. His handwriting, usually so neat, was frantic, jagged. I found the creek. It's not on the map. The water is wrong. It runs backwards. I followed it. I shouldn't have followed it. The trees are watching. I know that sounds crazy, but I can feel it. I try to go back the way I came, but the trail is gone. The sun is up, but I can't find it. I hear footsteps behind me, but when I turn, no one's there. Maya, if you find this, don't look for me. It's not that I'm lost. I'm not lost. The forest is just bigger on the inside. It's been keeping people for a long time. I can see them. Just shapes between the trees. Waiting. I think I'm supposed to leave something too. A stone. To help the next one find their way. Or maybe to make sure they can't find their way back. I have to go now. It's getting dark. And they're getting closer. I dropped the journal. The air was freezing. My breath plumed in front of my face. And I heard it. A faint crunch of a footstep on pine needles behind me. I didn't turn around. I couldn't, because I knew what I would see. Or worse, what I wouldn't see. I grabbed one of the stones from the boulder. It wasn't cold like the others. It was warm
And smooth.
and it felt like a key. I clutched it, stood up, and ran. I didn't follow an arrow. I just ran. I ran until my lungs burned, until the branches whipped my face, until I burst out of the dark woods and stumbled onto the dry creek bed, the sun blazing down on me, warm and real. I made it back to the van. I drove until I had cell service and I called the sheriff. I told them I found Leo's pack. They sent a team back with me. We went to the Twisted Pine. We went to the creek bed. We walked for hours. But we never found the dark woods. We never found the clearing with the boulder. It was just gone. The forest had folded itself back up, hiding its inside places. They think I'm in shock. They think I fabricated a story to cope. They found Leo's pack exactly where I said it would be, but they have no explanation for it. They've classified him as missing, presumed deceased. Case closed. But I know the truth. I still have the stone. The one I took from the boulder. It sits on the dashboard of Bertha. It's never warm anymore. It's always ice cold, no matter how hot it gets in the van. I'm not searching for Leo anymore. I know where he is. He's in the spaces between the trees. He's one of the shapes now, waiting in the shadows. He left his stone for me, hoping I wouldn't find my way in, hoping I'd stay safe. So, if you ever find yourself on a fire road in a national forest and you feel the silence pressing in and you see a twisted Jeffrey pine that looks just a little too familiar, keep walking. Don't stop, because the forest is hungry. It's always been hungry, and it's very, very good at keeping the things it takes. In 2023, over 1,600 people were reported missing in U.S. national parks. Many are never found.